Hey folks, it's Edgar with Acquire, Scale, and Exit. We are a full-service M&A advisory firm, and this brief video will cover our holistic M&A thesis, which we call the business deal assembly line, along with a recent deal stack consultation that we conducted for one of our clients. So when it comes to having a portfolio of self-managed companies, we believe that the three main pillars are: one, leveraging other people's money; two, finding and acquiring great self-managed companies; and then three, putting yourself above the business. Now let's dive into each one of these pillars very quickly. For number one, we have leverage your loans, credit, insurance, and asset portfolio to access other people's money. Once you have other people's money, you want to find a great company with at least a 2x DSCR and at least 10 employees. So DCR just stands for debt coverage service ratio. And all it means is that the company's monthly net profits is capable of supporting the monthly debt service at least two times over. So if your company was theoretically netting 100,000 per month, to DSCR would mean that you would have 50,000 in monthly debt to pay off from acquiring the company. The easiest way to calculate a DSCR would be to use a mortgage calculator. So if you go into Google, you search mortgage calculator, fill in the loan amount, the interest rates, and the terms, and that'll give you your monthly debt service. Once you have your monthly debt service, get your monthly net profit and divide it by the monthly debt service, and you should get at least two or as close to two as possible. If you find the deal with the 3x DCR, call me. I still haven't seen one, but we're definitely keeping our eye out. Now, that's a very simple explanation of DSCR. The reason why you want 10 employees within a company is because at that point, there's usually some secret sauce that's been built up within the company. And with 10 employees, there's usually one person that can be promoted to a general manager or a COO to allow you to focus on the third pillar, which is putting yourself above the business. In M&A, this could also be called the integration phase of the M&A lifecycle. And one of the most proven entrepreneurial operating systems is EOS, and that's what it stands for, entrepreneurial operating system. No pun intended. So with EOS, it is a great system, but lately we have been using scalable.co. Again, that is scalable.co. We don't have any affiliation with them. We just really love the product, and it is very user friendly, especially for the non-business people that are involved in the transaction. The next thing that you want to implement is profits first. So all this means is that traditionally you would calculate profit by doing sales minus COGS equals profit. Well, now you're flipping that. You're doing sales minus profit equals COGS. What this means is that you're paying yourself 10% off the top, and then the remaining 80 to 90% will be used to operate the business. And that way, you as the business owner don't have to worry about your personal finances. You could even go a bit further and calculate your monthly expenses and make sure that if that's less than 10%, great. If it's that means you can save some cash as well. But if it's more than 10%, then obviously you would have to account for that when you're running the profits first equation. And yeah, once you implement both of those systems, all you have to do is rinse and repeat. And there's no reason why you can't have a portfolio of self-managed assets, whether you're an individual or a company. Again, that was the business deal assembly line. As you can see, we have our fancy dandy assembly line down here. Now let's dive into our client's recent deal stack consultation. So our client's target company was doing 2 million in sales. It had 460,000 in net profit, and the asking price was about 900,000. The seller wanted 500,000 cash down at closing, and which left us with 400,000 in seller financing. So the very first thing, anyone that's using debt to acquire a company, the very first thing you should always do is run your DSCR. So if there's 460,000 in monthly net profit, you would divide that by 12 for 12 months, which would give you 38.3 thousand. Again, we wanted to support the debt service 2 times per month, so we would simply divide the 38.3 by 2, which gives us 19.16 thousand and a safe monthly debt service per month. Now we'll pretend that our client got approved for a 5-year loan, which is 60 months. We would do 19.16 thousand times 60 months, which would give us 1,150,000. Any bank, any lender, as long as there's nothing sub rosa with the company or no other issues. From a financial perspective, this is a safe loan, right? The company can pay the debt service 2 times over per month for 5 years, and it can support a $1,150,000 loan very easily. So now that you know what kind of loan you can take on, the next question that our client had was basically how would he engage investors? So we know that the company is valued at 900,000. 1% of the company would be $9,000. We'll pretend that the 5-year loan requires 20% cash down, and that would be about 230,000. So we would do 230,000 divided by 9,000, which gives us 25%. So our client only needs to raise $230,000 for 25% of the company. Once he gets the money, he would go straight to the bank and take out the loan for $1,150,000 to pay off the seller their $500,000. Now, in terms of the final deal stack, here's how we would structure it. We would assume that there would be about $150,000 in closing expenses, which would include legal and financial due diligence, along with the closing expenses for the loan. We know that the seller wants 500,000 cash at closing. And now for the seller financing, let's pretend that our client only was able to get a 2-year term for the seller financing. That means the monthly debt service would be about 16.66 thousand, which is an issue. We'll address that here in a second. And in terms of being able to pay them back over 1 year, you would want at least 200,000 in liquid cash within the company to pay off the seller note for 1 year. That's not including the second year, right? Just to be fiscally responsible and not just go blow that free cash on a car or something. So again, to be fiscally responsive, we'll keep 200,000 for 1 year seller financing payments, and that brings us to a total of 850,000 and a remainder of 300,000, right? So now that we know this, we can go to our investor and be like, "Hey, investor, once we take out this loan, we'll have $300,000, so we can pay you those 300,000 at closing, and you'll basically be netting $70,000 for floating us to $230,000. That way, you can recoup or retain your personal 25% equity within the company." Or you can use the 300,000 to distribute it among the team and employees as a transition bonus, or use it to grow the company, or a mix of all three, right? That's up to you. But the issue that it presents here, before I point it out, try to identify what the issue would be with 16.66 thousand and monthly debt payments to the seller. I'll pause for 5 seconds. Okay, if you guess that it would lower the DSCR, you are correct. So at a 2x DSCR, we had 19.16 thousand. If we add another 16,000 in debt, that means our DSCR will be slightly over 1. And that means that there'll be like maybe 2 to 3,000 left over every month after paying off the main note from the bank and the main note to the seller. So as a bonus for making it to the end of the video, we'll show you how to address that. Before we get into this, we do want to point out that seller financing is basically an investment from the seller into you as the buyer. So you should treat it as an investment from any other investor and basically respect that money more than you respect your own money because you had to pay them back, right? It's not your money. They're letting you use it. So you should be grateful for them. So what you could do is be like, hey, seller, I know that you only wanted $900,000 for the company, but we really need a 2x DCR to be able to grow the company. So what we're offering is we'll pay you, instead of paying you $900,000, we'll pay you $1 million. We'll pay you 500,000 at closing, and then we'll pay you 500,000 in seller financing. But over 10 years, and we'll structure that as a seller's annuity. So what that means is if we take 500,000 and we divide that by 10 years, which is 120 months, that means that every month you'll get $4,166 deposited into your bank account for doing absolutely nothing for the next 10 years. So you can move on with your life, not having to not have to worry about your basic living expenses. And then from there, they might push back. If they push back, my go-to is we really need this to DCR because if there's no cash flow within the company, there's no company. And if there's no company, you lose the rest of your seller financing payment, and then we lose our investment and any possibility of losing a return on investment. So basically, having a 2x DCR is security for both of us to make the most money here out of this business. So that would be the main objection with any pushback, whether it be with seller financing, a 2x DCR, or with keeping cash in the company. That's another objection you get is that people don't want to leave money, working capital within the business. So again, you would say, seller, I understand that you don't want to leave working capital within the business, but this working capital is security for the rest of your seller financing payments because if there's no working capital, there's no business, so there's no way to pay you back, and then there's no way for us to also get a return on our investments. But yeah, that's how you would structure and pitch a seller's annuity. Hopefully you found value in this video, and we would love to help you on your next M&A transaction. You can engage us either on an hourly basis. We do have half-day consults, and we also work with a select few companies on a profits or equity interest within the company. My email's at the bottom here. It's edgar@acquirescaleandexit. And yeah, hopefully, you found value in this video, and thank you for your time.